heartfelt gratitude to our valued partner, our premier partner, Premium Energies, and our hospitality and venue partner, Kanse Resort, for supporting this celebration and making it an integral part of the festival. Thank you. Now is a very interesting session. We now move from folklore and legend to another fascinating world, the world of royalty, princely states, grand palaces, and the many stories that came with them. Our next session is Princes, Palaces, and Parting. Takes us into the intriguing life of India's princely dynasties, their power, their personalities, and the moments that mark the end of an era. We are delighted to have with us John Zubrzycki. I had to rewind the video to get the pronunciation right for your name, sir. An acclaimed author, former diplomat, and historian with a PhD in Indian history. John is an author of fascinating books, including The Last Nizam, Jaduwala's Jugglers and Jinn, Dethroned, and all of which brings lesser-known corners of India's past vividly in life. And before we begin, I must mention, John has come all the way from Australia just to be with us here today. And I think that certainly deserves a huge round of applause. Joining him in conversation is Mr. Aniruddh Gupta, founder and CEO of Kiddo, a global preschool network spanning the UK, USA, and India. Please join me in warmly welcoming them on stage.
First of all, John, welcome to Nainital, and thank you so much for your time. So before I start, I just want to ask the audience, who has not heard of the Nizams of Hyderabad? Can you raise your hands? Okay. And now, you've not heard of the Nizams of Hyderabad. Okay. History lesson coming. And who has heard of Mukarram Jah? Okay. So why don't we start there, John? And why don't you give us a 2-minute potted history of Mukarram Jah?
It would take, it took a whole book to explain the story of Mukarram Jah, so 2 minutes doesn't give me much headway. But look, thank you. I just wanted to say I really feel like it's been worth coming all the way from Australia to be here in lovely Nainital. And thank you, Amitabh, for twisting my arm to get me here. Look, that's it. That's really where my interest in the princely states started, was with the story of Mukarram Jah. Now, Mukarram Jah was the 8th Nizam of Hyderabad. He died only recently, about 3 years ago. He came to the Gadi, or throne, in 1967. He was the grandson of the 7th Nizam of Hyderabad, Osman Ali Khan. And he inherited what was arguably the largest fortune in the world. So what did he do? Instead of staying in Hyderabad and taking charge of the responsibilities that came with being the 8th Nizam, he abandoned the palaces and the properties and went to Western Australia, where he created a durbar in the desert. He bought a 500,000-acre sheep station in one of the most remote parts of Western Australia, so making it many times larger than a lot of the 562 princely states. And within 20 years, he managed to blow that huge fortune and eventually fled Australia, fearing that he would be a debtor, arrested for his debts. Now, I came across the story when I was a correspondent in Delhi. There was a little page 3 article in the Times of India about him having to auction off the contents of his mansion in Perth and his 500,000-acre sheep station. So I went down to Hyderabad, wrote a feature article about him. I wasn't able to meet him. But I did meet a lot of people who knew him, and of course I had a good look around Hyderabad. And when I came back from Australia in the early 2000s, and I was thinking of a book to write, because I'd been living in India for about 6 years, that was the one that was the most natural fit. I mean, I was Australian, and I was fascinated by India, and here was a story which bridged these two countries. And it's a story which is, I think, it's a rags to riches story that has never been repeated anywhere in the world, which is a shame because Hyderabad had or still has, a very rich legacy, and it was. We can talk about this later. Possibly the richest. I call it the greatest of the Indian princely states, and I think that that's a fair description.
Yeah, and I think the story of how you got in touch with him is a story in itself, isn't it? Because you had to track down his mother and then get her to give you.
Yeah, no, I eventually did meet him, which was a bit of a coup because a lot of journalists had tried and failed. So when he left Australia without telling his staff that he was leaving, he said, "I'm going to the mosque. I'll see you on Monday." He basically packed his bags and took a flight to Turkey. And when I found him, he was living in a very modest 2-bedroom flat in Antalya in southern Turkey. Now, to get there, to actually meet him, it was going through lots of hoops. I eventually tracked down his private secretary in London. I met his first wife, Princess Ezra, who's still around, still on the scene, managing the Falaknuma Palace in Hyderabad. I met her on her private island in the Bosphorus. I was eventually... I was told that if she took a liking to me, then things would fall into place and I could meet him, and that's what happened, fortunately. So I went down to Antalya with one of his minders, and there he was. I mean, this is a man who, his grandfather wanted to be the next caliph of Islam. Now, he was half Turkish and half Indian. His mother was Princess Durusheva, the daughter of the last caliph of the Ottoman Empire, Abdul Majid. And his grandfather organized this marriage of the Ottoman and Nizam Asafjahi dynasties in 1931 in Nice, in Paris, in southern France, to bring these two great houses of Islam together. The Ottomans, of course, had been dethroned by Ataturk, making Hyderabad arguably the most important center for Muslim culture and learning in the world. And to preserve this legacy, Osman Ali Khan wanted his grandson, not his son, who was a bit too debauched and decadent, to take on that responsibility to be the caliph. So here was a man who had this incredible background, who was still, whenever he went to Hyderabad, which wasn't all that frequently, he would attract thousands of followers. He would go to the Mecca Masjid in the center of the old town, and there'd be tens of thousands of people there to greet him. And he was living incognito in a little 2-bedroom flat in Antalya in southern Turkey.
That's amazing. And how did you get all of these fairly complicated, fairly, I guess, aristocratic people to open up to you with all their deepest, darkest secrets? I mean, you have, in the House of Jaipur, you have stories of family feuds, alcoholism, forged wills, like everything, right? And like, how do you get them to open up to you? Did it make it easier that you were, quote unquote, a foreigner and not Indian?
Look, the Jaipurs are really India's answer to the Windsors, unfortunately. I was trying to pitch the screenplay for the film rights, and I said, look, this is like India's answer to The Crown. You could make an amazing Netflix series that would go over 4 seasons, and just to trace the fortunes and misfortunes of this incredible family. Look, it was, I don't know whether being a foreigner necessarily made it easier. I think just having some contacts, one contact leading to another, I guess gaining the confidence of one member or branch of the family led me to the next branch, and finally to the third branch. Jai Mansingh of Jaipur, he had 3 wives, famously. the best known being Gayatri Devi, Aisha. And Aisha and Jai were like the glamour couple of their time, mixing with celebrities, mixing with royalty, strutting the stages of Paris and London and New York, etc. So it was difficult to finally. I mean, the current lineage of Jaipur, who's Padmanabh still calls himself the Maharaja of Jaipur, which of course he isn't. But I managed to finally get to talk to that branch because they were the most reserved, the most secretive, and it was fine. I met Padmanabh and his mother, Dia Kumari, who now is a very prominent BJP politician. And I think they had the feeling that I was going to write a bit of a hagiography on them. And it wasn't until Padmini, who is like the Dowager Maharani of Jaipur now, cottoned on to the fact that I actually wanted to also talk to her and talk to her about her relationship with Gayatri Devi, because these were two very strong women who basically didn't like each other. That's when the penny dropped. And my publisher suddenly got these very angry approaches from that branch of the family, and they were at one point threatening to actually ban the book, which luckily I managed to, through the palace historian Rima Huja, who was a good friend of mine. She advised them that would be very counterproductive because it would only add to the publicity about the book. So the book came out very quietly. There was no advance publicity, and so far I haven't. I know for sure that I ruffled many feathers, but so far the book is still there. It's still there at the book stand down here at the festival. So that's good.
And did you censor anything at all, or?
No, I didn't actually. I've never written a book that's been commissioned by anyone, but I did run certain parts of the book by certain people, including members of the family who asked to remain anonymous.
Right.
When it came to certain quotes, otherwise they were fine. But look, in order to write this book, I also had to sift through thousands of pages of legal documents, archival material, etc. And meet, and the best thing about it, of course, was just meeting lots of people who gave me their perspectives on what had happened and so on.
And there's a 14-year gap between the last Nizam and the House of Jaipur, I think. So did you move on from the last Nizam directly to the House of Jaipur? How did that kind of come about? And
No, I took a detour into Indian magic. My second book was called The Mysterious Mr. Jacob, Diamond Merchant, Magician and Spy, and it's a long story, but he was a character in Kipling's Kim. He was Lurgan Saab, the curio dealer, the healer of sick pearls in Shimla. Anyway, he was a very interesting character who dabbled in magic as well as in diamonds, and had actually sold the Jacob diamond to the 6th Nizam of Hyderabad. And that's how when I came across the character and when I was writing The Last Nizam, I thought, hey, this will make a great story, which I think it did. And then and because he was a magician, I got interested in magic, so I wrote Jadwalas and Jugglers and Jinns, which is a kind of history of Indian magic, which actually that was my PhD. I think I'm one of the very few people in the world who has a PhD in Indian magic. But anyway, that was great fun, and the princely states come into it a bit because a lot of them hired magicians, madaris, to perform in the courts, and that was a very important part of what kept a lot of these more professional, traditional Indian magicians going. And then Juggernaut approached me to do the House of Jaipur, and then they approached me to do Dethroned, which is my latest book.
Yeah, and so, I mean, is Dethroned the kind of capping of the sort of trilogy, or?
Yes. So I've done Maharajas, I've done magicians, and now I'm going on to millionaires. So I'm doing the.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one. But no, look, I guess no, not really. I mean, there are, I mean, there's 562 princely states. I think the smallest of them, Bilbari, had fewer people living there than are in this audience today. Okay, and then you had the giants like Kashmir and Hyderabad, and all of them. I mean, there's a richness in their stories which continue to attract me to them. I'd love to do something on Baroda. I'd love to do something on Kashmir, on Hari Singh, or on the Dogra dynasty there. Yeah, Dethroned did kind of bring it all together, because I think it's the first book that really looks at what happened, how the British, well, it was not just Mountbatten, but it was also Menon and Patel and Nehru, twisted the arms of these 562 rulers, and they only had 3 weeks in which to do it, and to get them to sign these instruments of accession and become part of an independent India. There were 10 states that were on the Pakistani side, so we'll exclude them.
And they nearly succeeded, and that's remarkable. And what people forget is if they hadn't, you would have had a very, very balkanized India. I mean, it would have been a complete mess. The princes were actually given the option of either joining India, Pakistan, or becoming independent. So
that option was on the table.
That was on the table. Yeah, that was on the table. And some, there was states like Travancore, Bhopal, of course Hyderabad, and which wanted to exercise this option to be independent. In the end, it was only Hyderabad, and then Junagadh, which of course wanted to join Pakistan, and then Kashmir, who Hari Singh, who vacillated until basically he had no choice.
So Dethroned is quite amazing actually as a book, because you're right, it does bring everything together. I mean, a few questions there. I think we're running out of time, and then I'll open it up. One, do you think the fact that they got only 3 weeks to do all this was intentional on the part of Mountbatten and Nehru?
No, not really. Well, I mean, Mountbatten only announced that that India was going to, become independent on the 15th of August. On I think it was the 3rd of June.
Yeah.
So that, and then of course he was a blue-blooded royal. The princes actually thought that he was going to protect them, that he would come to their aid. I mean, they were incredible. Their loyalty was first and foremost to the British Raj, to the crown. And Mountbatten he was tasked with looking after them, looking after their best interests when he took up the viceroyalty. But it was something which I guess he did leave a little bit too late. And it was really not him, but Menon and Patel, who were the ones who did the heavy lifting to get these guys across the line. And that did involve a lot of sometimes threats of intervention, a lot of arm twisting, a lot of persuasion. Patel was particularly good at this, but Menon was kind of the brains behind the whole accession process.
Yeah, so Menon is a fascinating character, I think, in the book itself, because I think Khrushchev once asked Nehru, how did you liquidate the princely states without liquidating the princes?
Yeah.
And I think Menon's answer to that was, well, that was me, right? And I think that's, his memoirs are a core source for Dethroned, but, I mean, he's not shy of talking about himself. So how do you kind of parse out?
It's interesting because Menon wrote a book called The Integration of the Princely States, which was kind of the last word on the integration of the states. This was a 2-part process as well. First, they got them to accede. You said you can maintain your independence, essentially. You weren't constitutionally part of India, but you India was responsible for your foreign affairs, your defense, and your communications. Now, that was never going to work because some of these states were very advanced, they introduced limited franchise. They were economically, like states like Hyderabad, for instance, were on par with, I think they would have been about the 16th largest state in the United Nations had they become independent. But a lot of them, of course, were tiny. And their reputation for despotism, debauchery, and decadence was true. So there was no way that these states could manage their own affairs, could be viable economically. So then Menon and Patel twisted their arms again and made them integrate into India. So you had Rajasthan, which was made up of probably I think there was about a 10 or a dozen states gradually merging into Rajasthan. You had the Orissa states merging, you had the Punjab states merging into these units. And and this was a case of broken promises all along, because this was never part of the bargain. And even when they said, okay, you've got to integrate, they said, you big states like Jaipur, Baroda, Gwalior, Indore, you can still be independent political entities. Jaipur would be like, I don't know, Karnataka is today, that sort of thing. And in the end, it was only Kashmir which retained this special status. So it was, quite a. So it was Menon who was a very, crafty and I guess in this.
So we're almost out of time. So I'll have one more question, then we'll open out. I guess you would say that the new billionaire class in India is the new princely states equivalent, right?
Yeah.
So is that something you're looking at now? I mean, that's a leading question. But.
Well, I am. Yeah, I'm writing on the builders. I guess they're the merchant princes of India in a way. It's going to be a completely different sort of book.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not going to be. I mean, I guess most people when they think of the builders think of what, cement, or I don't know, cellulose or something, whatever else they're doing. But I really want to get into the personalities of these people. And I think that's what's always attracted me to every book that I've done on India. Has always been the personalities that are at the center of these stories. And in that sense, I think India is probably the richest country in the world for a storyteller like me to come to and to write about.
All right, so let's open it out for questions. Do I have hands? Students at the back. Okay.
Okay, we'll start here, then we'll go to the students. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Hi.
So I read somewhere that like Jodhpur, it was more inclined towards going towards Pakistan. And then they were asked, or they were requested to come to India. I mean, they were right in the middle of India and they wanted to join Pakistan. I mean, it's very odd.
It's not if you look at the map, and particularly if you look at the post-partition map of India and Pakistan, because Jodhpur was, now shares a border with Pakistan. Yeah. And so basically Jinnah was handing out blank sheets of paper to a lot of these princely rulers, to states like Indore, Bhopal, Jodhpur, Junagadh, saying, you write down your terms. Whatever you want, we'll give it to you. We'll build a railway so you have access to Karachi port. You'll be able to. We'll let you import. We'll let you import your arms and ammunition. Whatever you need, we'll do it. And at the time, the ruler of Jodhpur was Hanwant Singh, and he had only come to the throne in June, I think, of 1947. So he was a little bit hot-headed, and he was young and inexperienced, unlike his father. And he was almost swayed by Jinnah, but finally persuaded by Menon to sign the instrument of accession, but not before he pulled out. He took this pen out of his pocket, which see a lot of these. It's crazy. Mountbatten, for those who don't know, was a member of the Magic Circle in London. He was an amateur magician. So was Hanwant Singh. He dabbled in magic, and he had his own magic props workshop. And in this workshop, he produced this pen, which had a gun concealed in it. And he pointed this at Menon and said, "I'll shoot you." But anyway, he didn't, of course, and the rest is history. But no, he was eventually persuaded. Look, Jodhpur was about 30% Muslim. It had links to Sindh, parts of Sind were parts of Jodhpur, until I think Napier, one of the British, there was like a mini partition, and so there was it didn't make it kind of made sense in a way, and it was interesting because even there was a state in Pakistan called Bahawalpur, and it was ruled by, it had a Muslim ruler, a Nawab, it had a majority Muslim population, but even he was at one point thinking, hey, maybe I'll get a better deal out of India. So there was some clandestine talks. So it was very, very fluid situation at the time. Yeah.
Sir, what do you think modern readers can learn from the rise and fall of the Nizams?
Okay. Don't squander your wealth. Be a responsible citizen. Yeah, look, be proud of your heritage and do your best to preserve all of that. Yeah, I think there's a debate on the last day of our thing about have we learnt the right lessons from history, and I think that those in Hyderabad's case or in India's case that would be that. Yeah, yeah. India has an incredibly rich history. I mean, the other thing about Hyderabad, it was one of these. It had this incredible syncretic culture. There was a Muslim ruler, a Muslim minority, Hindu majority population, but there was this incredible syncretism between the two communities, which kind of still exists there, which is great. So that's another, I think, lesson that India can take from what Hyderabad was like.
Okay, last question over there at the back.
Maybe one more. We have to give one of the ladies a chance as well. Yes. No, but I'll take the one from the student, and then we'll quickly move here.
The Indian rope, after reading Jaduwalas, jugglers, and jinns, the Indian rope trick became legendary despite weak evidence that it ever existed. So doesn't the story itself kind of become a magic trick played on history? And if a magician's trick only works if the audience want to believe in the impossible.
That's right.
Then who's truly creating the magic, the magician or the audience?
Look, there was a French magician who said that a magician is an actor playing the part of a magician, okay? So I think that kind of sums it up. Yeah, to be a good magician, you've got to be a good actor, and you've got to convince the audience that what you're doing is real magic. And I saw a lot of magic when I was researching that book, and I still cannot explain some of the things that I saw. Okay, yeah, the Indian rope trick, that's a great story. Actually, well, it kind of was performed by a man who called himself Karachi, but he was actually a fitter and turner from Plymouth in England, and he did manage to get a rope to stand up straight, probably about as high as the canopy here, and he got his son to climb up it. But the difference is that he didn't make the son disappear, which is traditionally how the trick works, and then for his dismembered limbs to come raining down, and for the magician to put them all together again. But he got close anyway. Just one more question from the ladies out the front.
Your most recent book, Dethroned, highlights the role of leaders like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and Administrator V.P. Menon in integrating princely states. Yeah. Would you call their strategy as pragmatic or rather more diplomatic?
Actually, I think to be a good diplomat, you have to be pragmatic, and vice versa. And look, it was pragmatic, yeah, definitely. I mean, because they needed to integrate these states. Otherwise, there would be it would be a mess. Yeah. So I don't know. Are we one more question here or no? Okay.
Closest to the old-fashioned Indian royalty when it comes to personalities, intrigues.
Oh wow. What family interests me the most when it comes to personalities and intrigues? Oh, and wealth. Oh, I don't know. I guess maybe the Ambanis would.
But my colleague Hamish MacDonald has already written on them. I think the Polyester Prince was the book that came out quite a while ago. Yeah. But you've put me on the spot.
But that was about the previous. I mean, that was about Dhirubhai Ambani.
Dhirubhai, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I have to think about that.
We should consider it anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And John's around, so please.
Happy to answer questions afterwards and sign books.
Thank you so much for an incredible dive into history, sir. I would now like to call upon Mr. Amit Pratap Singh to kindly come on stage.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the most awaited part of the festival is book signing. I have 4 titles from John Sir's collection. There's one more. So please, if you get an opportunity, go meet the author, get your book signed, get it inked for your bookshelves. Do make conversation, click pictures, and if you do post them on social media, do not forget to tag Nainital Literature Festival 2026.